Welcome back, everyone, to Leadership, Leading Yourself and Others in Uncertain Times. I hope you enjoyed the first part of the presentation. We're about to enter my favorite part of this presentation, and I'm absolutely honored to introduce my guest. She's a dear friend of mine, and I want to welcome Kyra Kennedy, the CEO of Baratza, to the discussion. Hello, my friend.
Hello, Lee, and all that are listening. Congratulations on a first incredible 2 hours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. The next hour of discussion is going to be similar to what our usual conversations are, where you're walking through the forest where you are, and I'm walking in the park where I am, and we're just having a great long conversation, which usually goes for much longer than what this will go for. But it will be exactly the same stuff that we're going to talk about today. And one of the great honors of having gone through the kind of ride that I decided to consciously take myself on in self-leadership was that you get to a point where you are hyper aware of the quality of people that you allow into your life and the influence that they're going to have on you and the way that you think and the way that you feel and the way that you do. And the greatest part about this is that I get to be friends with people like you. And, you get to a point where you're like, what is success? We talk about things like that, and we talk about what are my life currencies and what is important. And at a moment like COVID-19, really, we've talked so much about how we're observing other people and how we're observing ourselves as leaders and our teams, et cetera, et cetera. How can we show up the best for other people? But one way that I know I've shown up for myself happened before, well ahead of this happening. It was about understanding how to bring great quality people into my life. And I think that's one of the greatest leadership tools that you can do for yourself, right? Like, have good people around you.
Thoughtful, thought-provoking, constantly learning, great people.
That would be you. In my life, that definitely is, it's that thing where I can pick up the phone and tell you what I'm scared of, and you can tell me what you're scared of. You can tell me what you're finding challenging. I can tell you what I'm finding challenging. We can agree and we can disagree, and we can talk things out. And we do. We disagree on lots. We agree on lots. And we still love. It's like this exploration of each other's minds. And now I get to share that with everybody through this, with the challenges that they're experiencing through COVID-19. And so one of the things that I keep getting asked by people is, how do you lead people through something like this? Now, I've watched what you've done with Baratza. I've watched how Baratza has led in the industry. And I was wondering if we could start in this by kind of looking at how Baratza has adapted in such uncertain times and how you as a CEO have approached that very difficult task.
Sure. Well, I have to start by saying that I was lucky enough to visit Lee in San Diego in February, and Lee was talking to me about COVID-19 and saying, the dragon is coming, the dragon is coming. And I have to say, I was probably one of those a bit passive leaders that didn't really want to believe that the dragon was coming. And I was actually in San Diego for a leadership conference, so I had 3 days to think about something I call reading the world, which is being able to listen to all kinds of people and all kinds of things that are being talked about and determine what's going to be important and what's not going to be important. And one thing I did come back from my conversation with Lee is I said, oh my gosh, this could affect our manufacturing, because we manufacture in Taiwan, which I wasn't thinking that COVID-19 would be a real big deal in Taiwan, but we get a few parts from China. And I went, maybe we should be looking into that. And actually, it turned out to be a great thing, because our manufacturing started looking into all the different parts that we get from outside of Taiwan, which are burrs, and a lot of our electronics come from different areas around the world. And so the beginning of the conversation of what's going to happen to our supply line was really important. So Lee, first of all, I'll thank you for that.
You're welcome.
But I really didn't think that much until probably everybody else started thinking about it in March, is, oh my gosh, I think this is going to have an impact on Baratza. And we didn't know what the impact was really going to be.
Yeah.
Although we did start realizing that it was probably going to have a big impact on some of our very important resellers. The roasters and cafes, as we started realizing they were going to be closing, and they were going to be dealing with a very difficult situation. And we also started seeing, and this is going to be different than a lot of people who are listening, we actually started seeing our business get very busy. Demand for coffee grinders skyrocketed in March, and as people started working from home, and people who had been going and having their coffee at a wonderful cafe and enjoying the community of the cafe, all of a sudden were stuck at home. They still wanted to have a great cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And so they were looking at their roasters and their cafes saying, wow, can I still make a great cup of coffee? And in that, I need a grinder, and I need something to brew my coffee in, and I need your wonderful coffee. And so all of a sudden, we saw a huge increase in demand. And we first started seeing it from our large resellers, a lot of which sell on Amazon or on the internet. And then we started getting people calling saying, hey, can I drop ship grinders? My cafe is closed, but I want to sell coffee on my websites, and I'd really like to sell coffee equipment. But it'd be best if I drop ship the grinders. And so we've always had drop ship available, but we made a decision as we saw this demand increase that we were going to hold over a certain number of our grinders for drop shipping and for our smaller customers, because the large customers were putting in orders that would completely eat up all of our inventory if we let it. So we made a decision to hold at least 35% of the grinders we have for our small dropship customers to ensure that when they ordered, they could get some. And it sounds like a really easy thing to do.
Oh, no.
Well, what was hard for us is that we haven't automated our dropship program. And so we actually put each one of those orders in by hand, ship it by hand, and then charge it by hand. And this meant it wasn't so bad when you got 10 drop ships a day or 5 drop ships a day, but all of a sudden when you're getting 80 to 100 drop ships a day,
that's another employee.
It is. And we weren't hiring new employees because most of our employees were working from home. And so how were we going to train them? How were we going to get them up and going? All of that. So anyway, it's turned out to be an incredible learning experience for us.
I can imagine.
And so I guess what I would say for anybody, whether it's a good experience, and some people can say, wow, growth is a great experience, and slow growth, slow, constant growth
That's
is
the
a
goal,
really
right?
great experience.
It's so nice.
But when you double your sales or triple your sales in a 1 month period of time, that is a whole different set of problems. And I always say we're now driving so fast it feels like the car is shaking
Yeah.
and everything is about ready to explode.
It's a
And
different fear, isn't it?
it is a different fear. And you worry about your employees all of a sudden are having to adapt, having to be very flexible, take on new things that they haven't done before, and work from home. So we had 14 people in our office, and now we have maybe 3 at the office at any time, which are doing our shipping and our repairing, and everybody else is working from home when they've never done that before. And we've never done that before. So it's been a really interesting experience in how do you hold, like you were talking about, how do you hold culture? How do you take care of the emotions that everybody in the company is having, because they're having the same fear, concern, anxiety, what's going to happen, change. So all of that is happening for them as people, and all that is happening within the business. And so we're dealing with some of the same things, not all the same things. And I guess I feel like we've been very lucky.
You know, I was talking in the presentation about self-leadership, and in times of uncertainty, which is what you're experiencing now, it's uncertain from a different perspective than what my other people are experiencing the uncertainty. Your uncertainty is, are my people going to be able to show up the way that I need them to show up? And am I showing up for them the way that they need me to show up as a business and as the CEO of the company? And how did you as a leader inspire, or did you inspire deliberately? I think I know the answer to this, but I'd love to hear you talk about it. How do you choose the people that can show up for the uncertainty? Do you do that at hiring? Do you cultivate it once they've gotten in there? Do you know what I mean?
Well, probably we've been around for 20 years, and we definitely have had some core values of the company that have been there for all 20 years. But I would say that in the last 3 years, we have really focused a lot on what's our vision, what's our mission, what are our core values, and how do we build teams and make decisions around that.
Mm-hmm.
And when you were talking about being your personal leader, and determining what you call it life currencies are, I think that for me, that's called, what are your cares? What are your concerns? What's really important to you? And one of the things that for me is, how do you care and take care of the concerns of all your stakeholders? And stakeholders, I've always hated that word, but I haven't figured out a better word.
I know what you mean.
but so stakeholder for me would be your consumers, your employees, your wholesaler resellers, your importers, your manufacturer, the suppliers that supply your manufacturer, your partners. Because to run a business, whether it's tiny or huge, it really requires a lot of different stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to be able to juggle the cares of all of them, it means that, first of all, you want to take care of all of them.
Right.
And that you've really
thought intentionality, right?
Right. Oh, I love that word. Yes. And we have been practicing that now for about 3 years, where we put together a management team, and our management team is mainly made up of our marketing department, our operations department, which we would call inside sales, service, support, and our product development and manufacturing. And so how do you take care of all those together and the people they represent? And so when we're making a decision based on, oh, we want to take care of all of our resellers. That doesn't mean the big ones. It means, actually, for Baratza, it means the cafes and the roasters and the baristas who have helped make us who we are, who have recommended Encore grinders to people that wander in and say, what grinder should I buy? And so I think that ability to be able to say, what's the mission behind, or the vision behind the company? And for us, our vision has always been to make everyone we touch feel cared for. Now, I'm not going to say we do that all the time, and I'm sure people that are listening can smile and say, oh yeah, I have some stories of when it didn't exactly make me feel cared for. But actually, it is at the basis of what we talk about at our managers' meetings, our all-hands meetings. It's the basis of how we make our decisions, and it's hanging on our wall. Not that hanging on your wall means you do it, but it is definitely something that I would say you could walk up to almost anybody that works at Baratza and they would say, oh yeah, we try to take care.
Yeah.
And what does take care mean? It doesn't mean you give everything away for free, because the company has to continue to be able to support, say, 1 million grinders that are out there. It needs to continue to support the employees that work for us and our manufacturer. And so it's really about, how do we weigh all the different things that are going to be important so that we can continue to be a company that's out there supporting our products, our employees, our manufacturer, our wholesalers, and all of them are taken care of in that.
What a great answer.
To finish that, we started building teams. We had our managers meetings. We have a manager meeting every week. We had an all hands meeting, which we had it once a month, and we've moved it to, since this crisis and everybody is all over the place at home, we moved it to once a week.
Yeah.
And it's important for us to, we meet over Zoom, and we have discussions, we watch videos, we talk about the history of Baratza, we talk about the good things that are happening, the comments that are coming out, the exciting things that Baratza is doing, what our customers are doing. And so that people feel part of a community, and they feel part of a team, and they all understand what we're trying to accomplish as they're working at home and seeing, our support emails have just gone through the roof. And what we're finding is there's a lot of people who are buying grinders for the first time. They've never made coffee before. And so the grinder arrives, they don't know what a hopper is, what a bin is, how to take the hopper off, what's
that little thing that is that what you
the gas
don't you clean babies' bottles with these?
So anyway, it's been,
I love my Baratza grinder. Thank you again for sending me one. It's just been a lifesaver through this, because I never made coffee at home. I drank elixir, or I would enjoy going out for a coffee, and then this happened and I sent you a text and said, you know what, I think I'm going to have to start actually making my own coffee, titled Little So-and-so. But yeah, it's been a lifesaver, so thank you.
Well, you're welcome. And you had a lot of company out there, and I'm sure, like I said, a lot of people who have never made coffee before have decided that now is the time that they need to put together something to make coffee at home.
Yeah.
And so you'd think, oh, the sales went up and nothing else would go up, but actually everything has gone up. And so we are struggling to take care, answer emails, answer phone calls, get orders out. And it's been a whirlwind of activity.
I keep using this word stress test. I know in our walk and talks, I've used it. You know, the Constitution has been stress tested. Civil liberties are being stress tested. Baratza has been stress tested for a different way than other companies have been stress tested, but you've still been, your systems are being stress tested right now. People's capacity to, I guess, live their lives in a comfortable or, you know, uncomfortable way is being stress tested. People's capacity for pain thresholds and all of that kind of stuff, everything is being stress tested right now. What do you think are the qualities of a leader that helps them face stress tests? I hate this word just because it's so ambiguous, but better than others.
Well, I think when you talked about being a personal or leading yourself, I think is what the term you use. I call it doing the inside job. And
I love that.
It's really about looking at yourself and looking at your moods, your emotions, the stories, the old historic stories that lead you to react certain ways, and determining choosing if you want to live in those kinds of moods and those kinds of stories that can limit you, and then to look at what the future you would like to have that's different than what you have now. And it doesn't mean you don't accept who you are and what you are, but to begin to go, oh, if I were changing something, and I love your current life currencies, flow, growth, purpose, meaningfulness, something that makes me feel like there's a reason to get out of bed in the morning, and
the compass, right?
Yes, make a difference in the world, help myself thrive, help the people I touch thrive, help Baratza thrive, and help the community thrive. And how that is so much an important meaning for me. And then Kyle and I have really felt the same way about Baratza, is how do we have a company that isn't based on how much money you make? It's really based on how do we build lives for ourselves, as well as our employees, as well as everyone we touch, that makes them feel like they can go out
and thrive,
touch other people. And that it's kind of that pass it along. How do we be in a mood of possibility, of hope, of care, of creativity, of learning, and
their perspectives, as you say that, I think those are perspectives of empowerment as opposed to a perspective of victimhood. So the polar opposite, God, this really does feel like a walk and talk. It's, excuse me, it's one of those things whereby you look at that and say, well, I can choose to look at this situation and say, poor me, or I can choose to look at this situation and think, all right, I've got to get creative right now in problem solving. I've got to get, how can I be of service to myself and to others right now, rather than just sitting in the mess of what this moment has created, whether it be COVID-19 or not. As I was saying, like, when I look at people who have done hard stuff, COVID is just another hard stuff.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I think everybody has to go through COVID-19 and the hard stuff the way they go through the hard stuff,
Mm-hmm.
feeling those emotions of anxiety and fear and oh shit, the dragon just burned down my
Yeah.
house. And you know, I've been studying emotions for the last year, actually, and we all want to say, I don't want the negative emotions in my life. I just want to smash those down,
Right.
and I don't want anxiety or a sadness or grief or
Yep.
anger or resentment or blame or all those emotions. I don't want those. I'm going to go to happiness.
We all
Well,
know what trap that is, making that decision, right?
yes, but what's really interesting is to look at why you're feeling those feelings and to accept that we all are going to feel some sadness that our worlds are changing.
Yep.
We don't like change, and we don't know what the change is going to be. And so how do you move from this sadness or this anxiety to an acceptance of, oh crud, there isn't much I can do about this. The world is changing and I'm not going to be able to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
And I now have to look at why I'm feeling this fear and sadness. And I need then to begin to look at what's the next, what would be next for me. And I've been there. I don't want to say that COVID-19 has not caused a lot of anxiety and sadness, as I look around and see the world around me changing and the fear and the loss that so many people are feeling, and to kind of accept that we are where we are, and what can I do? What are the possibilities of what I could do to help myself feel good, help my family feel good, help my business feel good, help the community? What are the little tiny things that allow me to get out of myself saying, this is what I lost, to beginning to say, I accept that I am where I am and move on. And we all do that at different rates. And I think you've talked about it's not, oh, I'm an assertive leader now, and I never go back to being a passive leader, or I never go back to being
I haven't mastered anything.
aggressive. So I go to all of those.
Yeah.
Passive, I don't want anything to do with it. Aggressive is just watch me. I can power through this, and I don't care who is damaged by me doing it. And it usually doesn't work very well. And it's the same with emotions. So I can't remember what the question was originally, but
no, you landed perfectly on. I read some research recently, and a lot of, I can't remember who the author of the article was, but it's this drawing this correlation between emotions evolved scientifically. They were looking at this. Our emotions are an important indicator of the experience. They're telling us a very real thing about something that is happening to us. So when you feel angry, and if you take the assertiveness training, you'll get to understand this, to the people out there. But when you feel angry, that is a trigger to tell you that somebody has stepped over your rights. So you can correlate an emotion with an action or an external trigger or an internal trigger that gives you a key indicator to why you're experiencing that emotion. And these are important. The understanding, again, this is all about self-leadership, having that relationship with your emotions, not being scared of them, seeing them and being open to them, finding a way to deal with them. You know, if you're somebody who, I experienced a lot of anxiety throughout my life. And when I started to look at it and talk to people about it, I realized that it was because of unprocessed trauma, and a lot of it. And so once I did start processing that trauma and going on the journey of taking responsibility for myself and taking responsibility for my actions, et cetera, I realized that I could sit in this anxiety forever. Not that, look, going through hard stuff, for anyone who may have misinterpreted that, what I said about, you know, COVID-19 is just another hard stuff. I'm not minimizing it. What I'm saying is that when hard stuff shows up for anybody, there is a process that they themselves go through. And for some people, it's every time something hard shows up, they go through an experience of anxiety, or they perhaps get angry at people or angry at themselves, or whatever it is. You just become more familiar with that process, or it's more new to you, right? So for me, I did the same thing as what everybody else was doing. I may have seen the dragon coming earlier, but I still had the, oh shit, there's a dragon coming. What the fuck am I going to do? You know, I still had that moment. I don't know what you do when a dragon shows up. This is new for me. And you freak out. I freaked out. And then, you know, that's when you're like, all right, Lee, you know how to deal with challenging shit. You've done this before. And so let's just try and do this the best that you can. You're either going to mess it up in a big way, or you're going to do yourself proud, and you'll definitely know how far you've come from previous things that have been traumatic for you. Who have, in your experience of this, who have been the people or the businesses that you have witnessed show great leadership, and what did that look like for you during this pandemic?
I don't know that I can name specific businesses, but I think I was telling you that one of the things that's been kind of fun is I've gone into the operations department and done a lot more operations than I've ever done in my life, or I've never done in the last 10 years of my life. And so for one day I was calling to get new credit cards because a lot of people had been customers of ours, but they hadn't purchased in a long time. And so their credit cards weren't working. And so I ended up picking up the phone and calling to get new credit cards. And it was interesting how many owners of businesses were the ones that answered the call. And we ended up having conversations about, oh yeah, I'm down doing the operations of the company too. And so it was interesting to listen to the moods of the people that I've been talking to. And in general, I have heard moods of their optimism. I think that this is going to be okay, and a looking for possibilities and a looking for conversation. And when I talk to somebody who wants to hear the world from, what's your world like? Let me tell you what my world is like. And so when you say, I think having a community of people that you can call and talk to as a leader, to be able to start listening to the people around you and what they're saying, and how you can then take that information and go, how do I take that piece of information home? And I guess I just keep, Joyce is our marketing manager. And
shout out to Joyce. She's wonderful.
She really helps me understand what's going on in the specialty coffee market as well as in the world. And so she's always sending me videos and explaining to me what she's seen, and like just yesterday, I got something, or a couple of days ago, I got something on counterculture, and counterculture has worked with NPR. I hope I got this right. NPR, and developed a coffee club, I think, is what they're calling it. And it's just been really interesting. I'm sure that's been in the works for a long time. But it can look like lucky. Wow, look what happened in COVID-19. Well, like you were saying, a lot of things that show up in COVID-19 are the things that you've been working on, or they've been working on, or someone's been working on, that all of a sudden it's the right thing at the right time.
Right.
There can be also people, businesses that have been doing something extremely creative, and it's exactly the wrong thing to have at COVID-19. And that doesn't mean that they weren't reading the world correctly or they aren't great leaders. What it means is, wow,
A dragon showed up.
the dragon showed up. And so I look at Baratza and say, wow, were we brilliant? No, no, we were not brilliant. If we would have known, we would have had 6 warehouses full of coffee grinders ready to go, but we didn't have. And if you went down to our warehouse right now, you'd go, there are no coffee grinders in this warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
It's empty. But we happen to have a container arriving every week. So right now what's happening is we're living off the containers, which were actually to get our inventory ready for Christmas. So
wow,
our warehouse is empty. It's usually, we have 6 months of very busy and we have 6 months of pretty light. And we have to keep our manufacturing facilities so they can build all year long.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is we try to buy about the same amount all through the year. And in September, the warehouse is groaning full. And then September, October, November, December, January, February, we empty it.
Right.
Then we begin the process of refilling it. That's a small business and how we work it, but that's
so smart.
And so what ended up
and
happening,
thoughtful.
Well, at the end of February, our warehouse was pretty low on coffee grinders, and then March hit with COVID-19, and our warehouse was already pretty low, and then within a couple weeks it was really cleaned out. And so we were very lucky that we already had containers coming in every week, and then we doubled up some. But the other issue is this is happening globally. So COVID-19, as I'm sure you talked about in your coffee buying and other things, this is happening all over the world. Yeah. And people are buying coffee grinders for home all over the world. And so our global importers are also buying huge numbers of grinders. So our manufacturer is working overtime to keep grinders coming out of our little factory. And so it's just been a real interesting. So we lucky. Yeah, we were lucky that we had a container coming in every week, that we can continue to drop ship grinders. We can continue to meet the demands kind of our resellers. We're rationing grinders to almost everybody. But yeah, we were lucky. And I think you can look around at different businesses and think there's a great leader there because they're winning, and there's a bad leader there because they're losing. But leadership isn't about winning and losing. It's actually about being able, like you've been saying, is responding to the breakdowns, the problems,
adaptability,
the possibilities, and being able to take care of all you can, and that there are going to be failures and there's going to be problems, and that's where you grow and learn. And that's the fun of it. It's actually fascinating to look back at the 20 years of Baratza and go, wow, we had some really not great things happen to us. We made some big mistakes. But when we look back at 20 years, we mostly remember the great things that happened. And every once in a while, somebody says, well, what about? And it's like, yeah, that was not a real great move.
But you get better at it, right? Like in the sense, and I hope that I drove that home in the presentation, the idea that leadership is a learnt skill. It's a like it's a muscle you have to learn how to flex and take care of, and grab these little tools that you find along your journey. And the same problem that you had 20 years ago shows up today, and it doesn't feel like a problem at all, right?
Well, I was thinking when I was looking at some of these questions that had come in, and I wasn't so sure I was exactly the right person to have this conversation because I wasn't sure how I would answer a lot of these questions. But I think leadership for me isn't something you can read in a book, and it's not something you're going to learn in 2 hours, like you said. It's a performance.
Oh, I love that, Kyra.
And I think we sometimes think, oh, I can listen to this blog and I'll become a leader, or I'll interview. Well, since I think probably a lot of the people here are coffee people, you didn't become a great barista by reading a book or looking at
pressing a button.
You and I make cappuccinos quite a bit, and I'm not sure. I never feel comfortable when somebody who's a great coffee person comes to my house and wants to have a cappuccino. But I've taken a lot of classes.
I'm sure you'd make an amazing
class back 20 years ago, and before another 4-hour class, and I'm still not a barista.
Yeah.
So part of it is you have a good coach, you have a good teacher, you do a lot of practicing, right? And
a lot of hard work,
make the espresso, to steam the milk correctly, to still am not very good at my latte art.
I can help you with that one.
So, and then how do you do it quickly? Joyce and I once took our espresso machine to church and decided that we were going to make cappuccinos for everybody during coffee hour. And I think we served like 80, and it ended up that at first we thought one of us would do it and the other one would just chat. Then we realized, somebody needs to be grinding and making espresso. Other ones needs to be. And you were not a coffee shop waiting to happen. But performance art, we were much better the third Sunday we did it, which was probably the last one because it was way too much work. But I think we forget that whether you want to play tennis, whether you want to be a great barista, whether you want to do podcasts and be an interviewer. I was telling you that probably 3 years ago when you started this, you were not the best interviewer. Now, I don't know because I wasn't listening.
Okay, I thought you were making a statement. I'm like, okay.
No.
Thanks, friend. I have no idea.
Years later, you're a master at
thank you.
Interview people, being able to maneuver in a conversation. You're good at making the people you interview feel comfortable and taken care of, but you're also willing to ask the very difficult questions that people might not want to answer. So you didn't become a great interviewer by reading a book and thinking, oh, this is how you interview people. You did it 3 years of doing it. I think you started it once a month, and then you went to once a week, and then you went to every day.
I think I've had one version or another of a podcast for about 10 years.
Oh, okay.
And it's but not in the coffee industry. This podcast has evolved in a big way over 3 years. It's, it went from something being like, oh, we'll do this every now and then. We'll try and aim for one every couple of weeks. It'll be great if we can do one every couple of weeks, to now we do it daily.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing.
And just for anyone who's under any misguided conception that I, don't have help, I do want to direct you to Mr. Brett Turner, and he has been a saving grace, particularly helping me put this event together. And Brett is the podcast producer. And it's wonderful as a leader to be able to say, all right, so what's my next big fear journey? And what's the next big hard thing I'm going to do? I'm going to learn how to trust people. You and I have talked a lot about this on our walk and talks. And my life journey has led me to always want to trust people. And then I've just been knocked down too many times by going on the journey of trusting people. And then for me, COVID-19 was about, all right, what do I want to get out of the end of this? What fear am I closest to here that I can get free from? And it was trusting people. And so inviting Brett into my world of producing this podcast has been the greatest reward of COVID-19, because it showed me so many things, but it showed me that people can show up for you the way that they say that they can show up for you professionally. And I was a little disheartened that way. And it wasn't that I was coming from a victim position. It was that I was trying to understand what I was doing that was causing the wrong people to show up. What choices was I making? Was I choosing the wrong people? Was I choosing a particular type of person and being ignorant or naive to other personality traits? And I realized that I was bringing a level of naivety to the way I was hiring people. And that was really hard to admit to myself. But if leadership, self-leading has taught me anything, and leading other people, it's that if you want to ignore stuff, that's fine. It's not going anywhere. If I want to ignore my naivety, that's fine. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop being naive. And so looking at that naivety and realizing that it was directly correlated to it was the cause of this dysfunctional little circle that led me into not trusting people. I'm like, all right, so how do I take this naive thing, unpack it and understand where it came from and why I developed that skill, why I'm so naive about certain things, and how do I start schooling myself different? Because it's nobody else's responsibility to school me about those things. It's my responsibility to school myself. It doesn't mean I don't have support. It doesn't mean that I can't pick up the phone and call my friend Kyra and say, hey, listen, so I don't understand why I keep fucking this up. It doesn't mean that the people around you that you can trust, that you can reveal your vulnerabilities, can't say, hey, listen, have you thought about this? And then you look at that and you say, all right, so I'm going to try this. You take a deep breath and you look at all the hard shit you've done before, and you've got this like foundational trust that says, I've done hard shit, I've failed, but I've succeeded as well. And I've learnt from all of that. And in all the fails and the successes, I think I've got some tools that will show me how to fail with less catastrophe this time than I have in the past when I tried to do this thing. And this has worked out really, really well for me. And I hope for Brett.
Well, I call that your edge, working on your edge.
Yeah.
And that there's constantly new edges. So you get something, you kind of get something and you feel like, oh, I think I'm getting better at this. And then you have that area that's always the swirl. I have lots of swirls. And you go, man, I just keep having the same problem over and over again.
Yeah.
So, and I'm actually working on some edges too, but I kind of love the idea of an edge. Seems like a cliff to me.
Yes.
And, you fall off and, I'm not sure I like that edge. And somebody in my class said, I look at edges as the cliff, and what you're doing is you're hoping to catch the wind that's going to bring you up. And so you come
off. Great visual.
It is a great visual. And so you're walking off this edge, and yet you really believe that what's going to happen in your fall is that you're going to learn, you're going to grow, you're going to have conversations, you're going to have people around you, and you eventually will end up floating up like a balloon, and then you're done with that edge, or you're
Yeah.
and so you on your trust, you've fallen off the cliff a few times and you hadn't caught that upwind draft.
Right.
And this time you, and I really love that way of looking at learning.
Yes.
That we're really trying to learn the stuff that's pretty painful and pretty scary. And we all have different things that are scary and painful for us. And so, but we all have our edges that we can be working on. And how do you look at your edge? And I love that now of, oh no, this edge is going to get me to be a person that can take more actions, create more value, make a difference in my life and other people's lives. And that all thrive, and we as a world can thrive. So.
Oh my Lord, I love that. We have a question from a friend of mine, Reggie Black. Shout out to Reggie. He just came through on the live chat. And Reggie's an interesting cat. Reggie and I met through somebody, and we knew instantly the moment that we met that we'd probably be friends for life. He happened to be visiting Sydney, and he's an artist, and he loves coffee and is a fan of Elixir. And we haven't been in contact for some time, but we've followed each other on social media, and Reggie's question has just come through. And he says, what advice would you guys give to anyone that has admired, enjoyed, and interacted with the coffee culture from a distance for years, but now using the shift in the world to start a business in coffee? I think it's a really interesting moment to look at a question like this. And we're going to wrap up with this question because I don't know how that was an hour.
Yeah, it was a walk through the park.
The beginning of the walk through the park. But what advice would you have for someone like Reggie? Because this is the reason I think that's a really great question to end on is because this is a moment of opportunity and hope and adaptiveness and pivoting and looking at what you're being presented with right now and facing that edge, as you put it, and making the decision of how close do I want to get? Do I want to walk off? And how am I going to time this so that I can aspire to my greatest success?
Woo, that's a good one. The first reaction, I'm sure many people who are listening, and maybe me too, was really now? And I am getting lots of people who are brand new in the industry that want to sell our grinders. And I go, wow, this would be a tough time. But, there would be another way to look at it. And that is to say, with an industry that is going to be going through big changes, which I think the coffee industry and many other hospitality
most certainly
are going to be going through big changes. It's oftentimes the people outside of the industry that can see things that people within the industry can't see.
Great point.
And over time, you always think of like Kodak pictures where we all used to be taking our pictures and having to take them and get them printed and developed. And then digital came and everybody's going, why didn't Kodak just move into digital? Well, because they were so stuck in a way of looking at images and how images were produced. And they had so much money tied up in a certain way of looking that they were not able to make that transition. And so how do we as business people, or a newcomer, look and say, what's missing? What are the possibilities here? What are other people not able to see? And I think not only for Reggie as he's wanting to get into the coffee industry, is looking at how, what is something that you see that somebody who's owned a cafe, roasted coffee, made coffee, built coffee grinders, whatever that is, can't see, because we're completely blinded by this is the way the world is, instead of this is the way the world could be. And, at Baratza, we have that same problem, is we see grinders in a certain way. And it's always really interesting to go out and look around at other equipment, other people that are developing grinders, espresso machines, copiers, boats, whatever it is, and what's new in the industry. What are they doing differently? What could we bring into a grinder that's never been used in a grinder before? And so Reggie comes with a disadvantage and an advantage of being able to look at coffee in a very different way than most of us who are sitting here listening to you are looking at coffee.
I love that answer. And I'm going to add a couple of things to that. I love how you used the idea of perspective, because I see perspective and your ability to find ways to get new perspective a really valuable toolkit in leadership. It lends itself to this idea of openness, that I don't want to see things I don't have to be right. I've got to see things from the way that other people see it, so I can continue to be creative and inspired. And I think that the challenges that Reggie, that's me molding Reggie Black all together and come out with Jerry. The challenges that Reggie has are actually fixable, because you can get a coach to teach you, and find any coach. I'm not plugging Map It Forward. We are one version of that. Find a coach that can help you and mentor you through all the challenges that you will anticipate through that, someone who has the experience. But at the core of your decision making should be, and this is what I've been telling everybody through this pandemic who wants to get into business, find a problem and solve it. And monetize that problem. So if you're looking at coming into an industry and trying to figure out a way to make cappuccinos, you're not solving any problems. There are a lot of people that know how to make cappuccinos. Find a problem that either people are experiencing that are consumers of coffee, or find a problem that people who work in the coffee industry are experiencing, and solve that. And get someone who can coach you through that process, that can, through their experience, help you learn quickly through their network or through the wisdom that they've put together, that can help piece together the holes that you've got through what you're doing. Because a lot of the stuff that's missing in our industry right now is people who are prepared to, with grit, do the work that's required to solve the problems that are happening.
Well, one of my favorite guys, Seth Godin, is one of my favorite brilliant guys, and I read his blog every morning. And it's always, his big thing is go out and create value.
Yes.
Go out and do something that somebody actually would want.
Yeah.
They can't get anywhere else, or is different, or whatever. And it might take you a lot of failures to go, oh, well, I'm going to make a better cappuccino, or I'm going to make a different brewer, or I'm going to make this. And all of a sudden you go, the thing that people are really struggling with is, and I think we're seeing so many cool innovations that many of us, instant coffee, new kinds of instant coffee, new
business strategies.
Exactly. And so it's kind of easy to go back and say everything's been done. I can't
That's the perspective
see any
thing.
Possibility, right? Instead of being able to say, when I'm listening to the world of specialty coffee, what am I hearing?
Yeah.
That's different, and being able to listen And like I said, I have a choice. I actually have an entire management team that's talking to me all the time about what they're seeing, what problems they're seeing, what new ways we could do things. And it's a kind of listening to perspective, I guess, is your perfect world of how do we be better? How do we create more value for the people we touch? And again, it's your stakeholders, isn't it? It's what they care about, is how do I take care of the cares of the consumer, the reseller, the
purpose,
employee.
everything.
Yeah, exactly. What is that purpose?
What a brilliant spot to end our discussion today and our 3 days of what I hope is an inaugural event called A New Coffee Industry. I appreciate you, my friend, and thank you for being a part of this very important event and milestone for me in my life. Keep doing the amazing things that you're doing. It really inspires me as a person, as a woman, as a leader, all of it. And to everyone who joined us, thank you for trusting us and the people who are giving so generously of their wisdom and their time to be here and to show up and to hopefully impart some knowledge on you that inspires you to be the best version of yourself. That's all I humbly bring to the world, is the intention that we can help you be a better version of yourself today than you were yesterday, whatever better means for you. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. And I hope that this has all been inspirational to you. Thank you to Brett Turner. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you to our sponsors, Baratza, Elixir Specialty Coffee, Costa Oro and Mill City Roasters. And don't forget to check out our podcast as well as checking out the group coaching for Ann Cooper, and that I'll be doing mapitforward.org/group coaching. On that note, I'm officially closing our 3-day event. Peace, love, and peanut butter, everyone. Have an amazing rest of your day.